I printed out like a couple of bullet points summarizing the books and put that little laminated card in my wallet. And I referred to it over and over again throughout my career. And I think generally it's just how to be a decent person.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the AI Training Podcast. I have a very special guest today, Alvin Ding. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mark. Appreciate it.
This is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to dive into AI. We're going to dive into Alvin's expertise in business and advertising. And this is just going to be a wonderful journey. And I'm really appreciative of your time. Why don't we get started with a little bit of who you are and what you do?
Yeah. My name's Alvin. I help companies of all sizes, both big and small, scale revenue, mainly through paid ads and bringing more customers to the table. I've spent $300 million in ads, driving growth for primarily SaaS and marketplace companies, as well as a little bit of D2C. Places and clients that I've worked with and helped grow are Airbnb, Spotify, Upwork, Vital Proteins. And we do end-to-end paid ads, like everything from customer research, creative strategy and production, media plan, measurement, and campaign management. And I gotta tell you, man, like AI in the last 13 months has really changed a lot of the workflow here. And I think of it as with math, you went from abacus to the calculator to the spreadsheet. With everything mental and creative, AI can help as a tool, not to replace people, but to help augment that skill set, just like those other technologies did in the past.
Do you feel like there is a disproportional gain in superpowers when you have some expertise and know what you're doing?
Oh, 100%. AI is not a panacea, right? I thought back in February of last year when it started taking off, oh my God, it's going to replace so many people. A lot of people are going to be out of jobs. And I think as we move forward year over year, some of that might happen, but you still need a lot of human interaction and human guidance and kind of shaping to take what is a really powerful tool ultimately to something that's usable, but not only usable, but engaging and enticing for a human audience. You can tell right now on LinkedIn, there are a ton of people who are responding to comments on Twitter, on all these social media platforms with AI generated responses. And you can tell, you can see it. And people are smart. They read the comment. They're like, this sounds a lot like AI. So it's not there to replace, it's really there to augment.
Yeah, these AI generated hooks that you can lose someone in the first sentence because you've used AI in the wrong way, or people are buying into certain programs that spit out lots of content for you. But if it's not your authentic voice, then it's difficult to make that kind of connection. You have a storied career in ads. What are three things or misconceptions that people have about running successful ad campaigns?
Three big misconceptions. That's interesting. I think the first one is that ads are too expensive. You'll always hear that from time to time. I think, it obviously differs by advertiser and their own strategy, but there are definitely certain times of the year where CPMs, cost per milli, which is the rate of impressions, like cost of impressions, they do go up. Black Friday, Cyber Monday, there's obviously an increase and an inflation in demand from advertisers. So ads do get more expensive then. But if you have your messaging and your foundations, and when I say foundations, the ad that you see at the end of the day is the culmination of a bunch of work. And making sure that ad hits all the different pain points and really emotionally cuts through to the viewer takes a lot of that foundation building. It's like persona research, understanding USPs, emotional pains and problems, stuff like that. If advertisers can get that dialed in, then they're going to have stronger financial performance in their ads. And so when you talk about ads are too expensive or Facebook's is too expensive, it's all relative, right? It's probably too expensive for someone who goes out there and doesn't do the work and just throws up any willy-nilly message. And like you said earlier, if it's AI generated and it doesn't have that like human soul, then people aren't going to watch. People are not going to click. And you paid for basically nothing. But if you have your messaging dialed in and you've got something new and novel and unique, then people are going to pay attention and they're going to click and they're going to go to your site and your CPCs are going to be lower and your conversion rates are going to be higher. And therefore, as long as the ads fall under your break even CAC or whatever, then it's not too expensive.
Would you say that what you do is an art?
Oh, yeah, definitely. This goes back to the whole AI is not a panacea, right? There is a logical framework for how you want to structure your media strategy, right? So, who are the people? How do you get in front of them? And on which channels? And what do you say in the creative? Some parts of those are just objective, logical things, right? If you're selling an AI training course, you'll want to bid on keywords that are related to the AI training course. That's a little bit more logical. It's a little bit more obvious. But then there's an art to convincing that person who's searching that term and who sees your ad to A, be interested in your service, B, feel like there's actual value there beyond just what they can get online for free, and then C, like really emotionally start to get excited, right? Because no one's going to pay money until they're excited and they feel like there's something in it for them. And so that part is a lot of art. And you can go into ChatGPT and prompt it geniusly and have it give you something that's maybe workable 60% of the way there. But I think to get it the rest of the 40% to 100%, there is a lot of human kind of gut feel and adjusting. So it's definitely an art. And that's something that I continue to learn as I read more books on marketing and keep my knowledge set current. One example of that is this book called Marketing to Mind States. And it basically argues that to get someone's attention, we're all scrolling our phones, doom scrolling. The feeds are just feeding us a ton of content, whether you want to see it or not. It's just there and it's automatic. Even if, and I'm an agency owner, right? And I see ads that get straight to the functional benefits of what it is they're offering me. Hey, are you an agency owner? That first sentence, very relevant, calls me out. Great job. Do you want more capacity for your creative production? Yeah, but there are a million of those ads, right? So I just usually just keep on scrolling. I don't even stop. But the ads that do the best are the ones that speak to a higher order goal. And in this book, Marketing to Mind States, there's this distinction between type 1 and type 2 filtering and screening. And type 2 is this thing logically what I want. So it's like the benefits and the features. Type 1 is this thing emotionally what I want. And so for me, I've worked in house, I've been a freelancer, I've been running this agency for the past 4 years. Ultimately, I do this for great work life balance, keeping my skills sharp, and building teams and working with people and clients that I enjoy. And the ads that do the best in hooking my interest speak to those higher goals, those type 1 goals. So it's emotional stuff. I'm constantly feeling transparently, oh man, am I going to be able to like rock this client's business case and help them scale? The ads that work the best on me speak to that kind of desire and emotional anxiety and eagerness to rock it for people. Once you open with that, then you have that person's attention and you can talk to the type 2 things about, yeah, okay, then you need creative strategy, creative resource. We can help you create more ads. We can source UGC banks, stuff like that. That is all an art. It's not something that we've measured with our scientific devices to have empirical data. That's all of it. You have to feel it. So there's definitely a lot of art in there. And that book is pretty important.
I'm glad you mentioned books. It's one of my favorite questions. What are your favorite books? We'll get to it.
Yeah.
So you can stir on that. But I was doing some songwriting this morning, and when people, I've been trying to use ChatGPT to prompt me and ask it for ideas based on some thoughts. And it's always not great, like for songwriting in terms of what
Yeah.
I want. Maybe for someone, you can ask it for something and there's your perfect song, or feed it with reference points. But the way you make a connection in a great ad is much more like writing and editing your own song, where you're speaking to one person or you're channeling emotion, that it's a lot harder, at least right now, for that art part for ads, right?
To-
It's a feeling thing.
yeah.
So, you know, the data is important and it's got to be organized and structured and actionable. But there's something to be said for looking at probably all that money you've spent. It's taught you a lot about what works in terms of the feeling part of it, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Cause for us, the feedback loop is instant, right? We have some theories on which emotions our customer segments are really feeling. We have some theories around how they feel about their problems and how we can solve those problems for them. And then we go into a workflow where we have from a brief to an ad within 7 days, a complete 15 to 30-second video ad. And you put that on Facebook and you immediately see as the impressions roll in and as the cost goes up, how many people are viewing your ad, how many people are being hooked, right? Thumb stop rate. So 3-second views over impressions. The higher that metric, obviously, the more people are interested. CTRs, right? Click through rates, all that stuff. So yeah, we see it in real time. And sometimes we'll think, oh, this ad is really going to crush it. I feel like we've nailed all of the USPs, all of the emotional hooks really well. It'll come out and flop on its face and be a dud and have really low engagement metrics. So we see a lot of it through our ad spend. Yeah.
Yeah, everything's a lesson in a learning. Uh, do you typically A/B test or ABC test? How many variables are you throwing at campaigns?
Yeah. Totally. That's the lifeblood of digital advertising, right? And anything online based where you can quickly swap out variables and measure the outputs. For us on Facebook, our clients, it's typically a function of two things. How many theories and hypotheses and creative variants can we make according to those theories and hypotheses? And then how much spend is there? Ability to actually buy impressions because you need impressions to collect data and collect signal on a test cell. And so typically we'd recommend in an ideal case for every single audience, so a customer segment and product, we'll recommend 3 or 4 ads in one Facebook ad set. And we'll typically have a couple of different messages for ad A, ad B, ad C. And they'll either vary by the opening hook, in which case we keep the body and the CTA and all that stuff constant. And we're primarily interested in measuring that hook rate, that CTR, just to see what's the first sentence, what's the best first sentence we can put out there for someone to understand what we're offering and be interested by it. But it's not always the hook either. So once we test through a couple hooks and we arrive at the best one, we might want to iterate on them that second piece, the body. So what USPs, what use cases do we want to tout? Do we want to put like social proof up in front of the USPs? How does that affect engagement? That kind of thing. So yeah, we're constantly A/B testing. The more cells, the better. And the cells are typically informed by all that research that we do in the persona phase to understand all the USPs that might matter to someone and like how to message it.
Has the persona work gotten a little easier with the help of AI?
I gotta tell you, man, like when ChatGPT first got the ability to browse with Bing, I think this was like March or April or yeah, I think it was like April of last year, 2023. It was able to crawl subreddits with no problem. And you can create a panel and queue up research candidates and pay for customer research people to design interviews and questions. And that's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars and time. And you might have some bias built in from the participants and the questions. Or you can just tap into the mega unvarnished, anonymous source of very genuine kind of human feedback and thoughts that are available across the internet, whether it's like Reddit, subreddits, comments, YouTube videos, TikTok comments. So when ChatGPT got Bing browsing ability, I had a client at the time working on insurance for truckers. And I created a prompt that was like, hey, go find the top subreddits that have truckers on them talking about whatever it is that truckers talk about. And then tell me, like, what are their emotional struggles? What are their work weeks? What do they hate? What do they love? What kind of language and keywords do they use? Like, how do they talk about things colloquially? And it was just amazing because prior to that, I did this manually, right? I have a workflow or a document where we research the demographic parts. Who is this trucker? Age, gender, demographic characteristics. And then there's what is their goal? What are their problems? And then it's like, how do they get to those goals and solve those problems? And then what are their options and solutions in the marketplace for those problems? And it would take me like 4 to 6 hours to go through and manually cull and collect all this data and all these insights. And obviously, it's to some extent anecdotal, but on a lot of these platforms, there are likes and votes, and there's like a quantifiable way to surface the thoughts that have the most agreement, right? Cream rises to the top. So I used to do that. It used to take 6 hours, but that would power like the keywords that we bid on, and that would power like the creative that we would test. With Browse with Bing, it was like, boom, done in 30 minutes, right? It would go and find the subreddits, find a lot of stuff. I would continue to refine and iterate and ask questions. And it was just amazing. I felt like I got off a bicycle and hopped into a Ferrari. It was just like a game changer. And I was super jazzed. And then I think like over the past couple of months, Reddit has done something where ChatGPT can't necessarily crawl it anymore. Maybe there's a no crawl robot text file or something, but that's no longer available. You can still you can still copy and paste content and have ChatGPT summarize it, but it was a lot easier back a couple months ago. It still helps, but it's not as Ferrari-esque as it used to be.
One thing I found to get around, say, long thread copy paste is if you do a print screen to PDF, then you can just upload the PDF and that quickly puts all that text in there in an easy to manage way. So you're not
Yeah,
hitting a text cap, which is
that's it.
sometimes can be an issue. But
Yeah.
the print screen or save to PDF, that can work across the web. Um, I'll often use screenshots also, and maybe reduce the zoom down because it'll read quite small. So you can also get a larger window of what you want to copy paste of if you're just doing screen grabs. But yeah, long PDFs, I was going through this process of sometimes copying everything, putting it into a Google Drive file, and then saving it as a PDF. And that's just a quick tip that could be useful in many places. Yeah, it's the good old days. And I'm sure there'll probably be one or two AIs that is just going to be Reddit exclusive, and forget who. There was a deal that just happened with a lot of money that went through.
I
So
think
maybe they closed the door to ChatGPT.
I think it was Google. They licensed all the content from Reddit for $300 million, and they're going to use
And
that. Yeah,
that
exactly.
makes sense.
Yeah. It's a huge,
Um,
I think, right? Like, where are the way these LLMs work, it's all trained on what people are writing, right? And so where is one of the
mhm.
biggest based databases? Reddit, Wikipedia, Quora, all these places. But yeah, totally. And to build off your point with images, right? Like right now it's text based, but in the future I can see these chatbots being trained off of like audiobooks and podcasts like this one, right? Where it can listen to things and be more multimodal. Text was the first phase. I think imagery is obviously the second one that came. And I think maybe audio will be the next one. Who knows where we'll be in like 2025, 2026.
I think as far as feasibility, having AI interact with audio is much closer than perfecting the physics of video. And also the implications of what that would mean for anyone to be able to create this video. I feel stuff like Sora will be slowly rolled out, but even the speech to speech inside the ChatGPT app is such a powerful tool. And it's not perfect, but it's available even on the 3.5. So if you have no budget for your AI ChatGPT spend, it's only $20 a month. But if you're not doing that, you can still utilize the talking to an AI to help you with all sorts of different things. Really incredible. What are your thoughts on this Elon Musk lawsuit? Elon Musk is suing OpenAI. He said he'd drop it if they renamed
Yeah.
it to closed AI.
Yeah.
Is that just a big PR stunt? What do you think?
Yeah, totally. It's Elon. He's just the world's biggest troll. He loves attention. And yeah, he's just slapping the table with whatever. He's just being himself. I'm not shocked at all. I'm sure that this will become a frivolous situation and nothing will come of it. But yeah, I heard that news. Yeah, I just feel like he's a troll. I don't have further thoughts on that. Oh, ours though.
Well,
I
he,
wish he would make more Teslas and move that Tesla stock of which I'm a shareholder up. But
he's certainly got a way of injecting him into the conversation, right?
mhm.
He's done a good job with being his own biggest PR advocate with very little ad spend at all. You'd argue that's, yeah, it's been incredible to watch. Talk a little bit about some of your favorite books. You mentioned one. What are some of your books that you either revisit or have inspired some thinking?
Yeah. But when I was young, I think it was 6 or 7, my dad told me, "Hey, you should read biographies of great people. You should read some of these books." And one of the books that I read, I think, in my earlier years was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's like a seminal marketing book, and it's really shaped, I think, subconsciously who I've become over past 3 years. And I printed out there's this book, and then there's also Influence by Robert Cialdini, I think. And I printed out like a couple of bullet points summarizing the books and put that little laminated card in my wallet, and I referred to it over and over again throughout my career. And yeah, How to Win Friends and Influence People is one of the ones that I really love. And I think generally it's just how to be a decent person, right? Like the title says it right there, How to Win Friends. And to be a friend, you have to be someone that people like and someone that people trust and someone that people enjoy being around. And one of the biggest kind of takeaways I had for that book was that I think you see this a lot with sales teams and SDRs, especially the more green ones. They have a script, a talking point, and things that they want to communicate on an initial call. And they'll just dive right into it without really understanding like what your goals are. And they'll just be, hey, our product does XYZ and we'd love to have you buy it. It's great. Cool. They're talking about themselves and they don't know anything about you. I think a big superpower that power that a lot of folks in our culture today are missing is just being able to listen. Listening is it's just a gold mine, right? Because you listen to someone pour their wants, needs, desires out, and it becomes a blueprint for how to work around that. And in the business sense, if you want to sell someone something, but you need to know what their problems are because only then can you position and formulate your offering in a way that helps to solve those problems. And the more clear you can connect those dots, the more likely they're going to be interested. So I think that book was a huge one. I think Marketing to Mind State's the one I mentioned earlier was a really great one with type 1 and type 2 kind of emotional marketing thinking. But yeah, there are a ton.
Is not the Marketing to Mind States, is that old book? When was that book?
I
Was that
like it because it's not that old. There's a line in there where the author, Will Leach, he's this guy who has done, I think, a lot of marketing work over the past 30 years with a lot of CPG brands. And this book was written, I think, in 2016 or 2017. And I like it because there's a line where he says, everyone focuses on A/B testing variables now. And that's still true right now in 2023. It's very current. And he says, it's sure, that's important, but don't forget the soul and the emotion, more of that art that goes into a marketing message. You can't get the whole truth from just A/B testing metrics. You have to have something more soulful. And as a performance marketer, someone who started his career 10 years ago with paid search and Google ads, I would always look at the brand team and be like, what are you guys doing? Like, you're just optimizing towards impressions and CPM, and you're not even measuring what comes out the other end. 10 years later, I have more of a comprehensive view of marketing as a whole. And obviously, with brand stuff, there's like share of voice, recall, market saturation, there's post purchase surveys to measure some of that more top funnel stuff that's not empirically easy to gather, at least not as easy as conversion tracking through a pixel. But yeah, I think understanding more of that brand world is what this book has done for me because it talks more about that emotional stuff. And with brand work, it is more emotion forward and it's more, yeah, feeling oriented and less did they click? Because brand stuff is on TV, right? Like you're watching Game of Thrones and then a commercial comes on. You can't click on that ad. So it's not really trackable in terms of the old digital world of doing things.
Very cool. And the books you mentioned, How to Win Friends and Influence People, it came up yesterday for me. I was thinking about something and I'm like, where is this from? Asking ChatGPT. And
Huh.
it's number 2 in How to Win Friends and Influence People. It sounded familiar,
Yeah. What was
but
the wait? What was the thing?
I forget what it was. Let's see. What is the number 2? Do you remember it? Number 2 in
Don't. But
How
I'm
to Win
sure
Friends.
that's ChatGPT will remember very quickly.
So it's a smile, actually.
Oh yeah,
Is that
yeah,
right? The
yeah.
simple act of smiling has a positive effect on anyone that sees it.
Yeah. Hey,
Um,
people are we mirror each other, right? And if you come into a room with a dour look on your face, people are going to be like, "What's wrong with that guy?" But if you break into the
yeah.
room with sunshine and rainbows, people are going to be drawn to that. Are you
Now I'm
familiar?
now I'm not going to stop smiling for the rest of the podcast. So just so you know, what were you saying?
Yeah. Are you familiar with F1 or Formula One racing? Daniel Ricciardo, by any chance?
Not him specifically, but I do. I am familiar with the Formula One. Yes.
Yeah. TLDR on Daniel Ricciardo is he used to be a great racer. He's not great. He's not good anymore, but people keep him
Yeah.
around because he's such good vibes. He just smiles all the time and he's to be around. And I think there's value. It helps with the culture.
I love your idea of taking those important principles and laminating that card. Do you still have that card? Do you still
Yeah.
carry it?
In the drawer, it was a very MacGyver lamination. I just took packing tape and I taped both sides and that's it. But it's still in my drawer. The ink is still there and hasn't faded too much. The edges are a little frayed, but yeah, I still have that card.
So you have all of the 7 on one side and then influence Cialdini principles on the other. But
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it's perfectly one on one side, old tape with the B side, A side. Because I
yeah,
think one of the books was a little longer, but yeah, all the bullets are on there.
that's cool. Influence is also such a good book. That is a classic and a must read for anyone who hasn't. Perfect revisit anytime. Very cool. So there's this book now that I have to check out. The one you keep mentioning. I
Um,
haven't grasped.
mine's
Yeah, I'll
yeah,
definitely give that a read. So thank you for that.
yeah, for
Let me
sure.
ask you, let me ask you, Alvin, what have you learned the most about yourself in your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. It's not easy going from a full-time job to being your own kind of boss. The stability obviously isn't there. You live and die by the pipeline you're able to generate, uh, the skills you can pick up in terms of sales and even just like general admin stuff, right? Like accounting, finance, stuff like that. Not like VC funded. I don't have a ton of cash that I can hire people with. So a lot of this is learning new skills and putting on new hats. And with that, there's this huge incentive to basically reach the top of the ceiling, right? Because you don't have to wait all year to get a raise or promotion. You can learn a new skill, quickly test something, and generate interest and create value for people very quickly. But with that incentive comes a lot of pressure because you tell yourself, hey, like, why aren't you getting there faster? Why aren't you doing ABC? And so with that comes anxiety and stress and guilt. And it's been a mental journey getting to a place where I was very comfy and happy at Airbnb, eating the tech lunch every afternoon and getting the breakfast. And they serve dinner at 6 p.m. too. So you can literally spend your whole day at the office eating the free food to going to a place where I don't have security like that. And there's a lot of existential dread. And I think over the past 3 or 4 years, I've learned that my own value and self worth is not tied to the monthly revenue. And actually, very related to this podcast, there's a great ChatGPT bot called, pardon the language, it's called Framing Shitty Beliefs Fast, or sorry, Reframing Shitty Beliefs Fast. And it's basically cognitive behavioral therapy in a box. Whoever created this bot loaded it with all of the right questions and prompts to ask a user in order to help them reframe something into a different perspective that is logically more helpful and less destructive. And that bot is actually great. I pay for an actual therapist. I have this bot, and the bot is actually quite helpful. It's almost as good as the therapist with CBT. Yeah, that's been a great tool. But yeah, just learning about the own self pressure that I think a lot of us have in today's day and age with the way our society works, and learning how to deal with that and wrangle with all the feelings that come out of that it's a priceless lesson that I've learned over the past couple of years.
That's great advice. And I'm sure for anyone watching this who's an entrepreneur, they empathize with the feelings. If you're not a billionaire yet, what are you doing?
Yeah. And I'm sure even the billionaires are like, why am I not number one billionaire?
Yeah.
Never ends. So you're always comparing yourself to the keeping up with the Joneses, regardless of which Jones you're keeping up with. And yeah, it can get lonely. So it's important to have that mental focus.
This app that you're talking about, is it a ChatGPT plugin? What is it?
It's just a custom GPT. Pay for the $20 a month. You have that ability to create GPTs and like use GPTs. It's just a GPT. Yeah, it's free to use. And if
We'll
anyone
leave,
wants, yeah,
yeah, I was just saying we'll leave a link below for people to have that little mental health break. I think that's a good one.
for sure.
I've
Yeah.
been using I've been using ChatGPT. There's a really good book that I was reading, and it was by Dan Kennedy, and it had one idea in it. The name will come to me in a second, but that you always want to be measuring backwards. Oh, it was The Gap in the Gain. Have you read this one?
No, haven't.
So it's great. It's really about entrepreneurial happiness. So a great topic. And often we're measuring into the future at horizons that keep stretching farther and farther away. So we're
Yes.
always feeling the measurement never adds up for us. We never get there.
Mhm.
So even if we do, here's another one, right? So the whole premise behind the gap and the gain is if you're in the gap, you're measuring towards the horizon. If you're in the gain, you're measuring from yesterday or whatever. You're constantly measuring backwards. So one of the ways you can do that is have 3 daily wins that you reflect on the night before. And Dan said that if he has 3 wins a day and they're the right wins, then that's however many wins in a year. And that's a pretty good year. Just this idea of focusing on 3 wins. And I'll usually go for a walk with a coffee in the morning and I'll talk to ChatGPT about yesterday's wins. And I've gotten into this habit of at the end of the day, also talking in the same thread of wins. So it's got history of my
Ex-
wins from before. And you
Yeah.
can keep rolling with this thread of a routine where in the morning you just check in, you got your wins, great. And ChatGPT is very encouraging and it reassures you why those were such great wins. And good for you, Mark. Well done. But having that rhythm, it may seem like a simple thing, but not a lot of your friends have the time for you to give them a call and tell them about your wins. If you have someone like that's amazing, but we all have this tool. And I'm always curious about how other entrepreneurs are using it, especially for things like mental health. I think that's should be part of the conversation as far as how we can be happier with these
Yeah.
tools.
Amen, brother. Totally. One of the things that, yeah, I do a lot of journaling, and that gap that you talked about, I think this is what the Buddhists understand better than most, right? Life is suffering because you want for a lot. And especially in our capitalistic society, we all want. Where our worth is defined by consumerism for a lot of people. And the gap between what you want and what you have, that is suffering. And if you focus on that all day, every day, that's all you can that becomes your life. That if it always feels like you're behind. So closing that has been super helpful. You either earn more or provide more value to succeed more to get to that horizon that you discussed. But to your point, it never stretches. It doesn't stop stretching. Or you can just realize that life can be easier if you just want for less. And focusing on what you have accomplished, that is something that I've been implementing over the past 6 months, where every Monday, top of the week, I'll journal in Notion. I have a template. It's got questions. I just go through that. I
So
usually,
you have a weekly sync, or is it daily? A sync journal that has the same questions for you every day or a
yep,
week?
exactly. So I journal as much as I want, but I try to do it at least every Monday. Sometimes I'll do another one throughout the week on Wednesday and Friday, but at least once a week. And the journaling helps me recenter on what I really care about in the long term rather than getting too in the weeds with the day to day stuff. And also just putting it out on paper, right? It feels great. Or I guess not paper, digital paper. It feels good to just get it out and see it and process it. It's like therapy in a way. But yeah, I think one of the big things that I've done is in addition to the journaling, every Monday, I'll set my intention out for the week. It'll have a career and work angle to it, and then it will have a life and general well being angle to it. And I'll put down in bullets every week. Okay, what are these like the top 5 things I want to hit for the work thing, top 5 things I want to hit for the life thing. And then as I'm going through the week, first of all, as soon as I write that bullet down, I create a calendar block on my calendar for that week to do it. Because for me, if it doesn't get on the calendar, it doesn't happen. You need to reserve time to make these things happen. And as I go through the week and I finish those things, I go back into that original document with that list and I just check it off. A lot of people have this. It's just a weekly to-do list. But for me, I put it on my Google Calendar so that I see it. It's a different color. I open it up and I update the description where I've written it. And I just put a little green emoji. And it's so satisfying. Talking about the game, you have to take a minute to acknowledge for yourself, hey, I created something or I did something this week. And then that game feels visceral. Okay, like I did it and I should get credit for it. And when I look back on the week, it's not, oh my God, where did the time go? It's, hey, I checked that box. I can see it right there. Oh, and by the way, for me, because it's on the weekly calendar, I can go back in time and see all the different blocks that I've put and see how the items have changed. And seeing those green check marks is just like viscerally very satisfying.
Yeah, whether it's a digital to-do list or something you just write down, that feeling of crossing it out
Yeah.
is very rewarding. And if we don't have them visually somewhere that we can see them, we can fall into the gap because uh, we're not seeing the progress. Notion's great. I also use Notion. I find it very easy and just a great all around tool. What other tools do you like from a technology perspective that one way or another have worked into your sphere of daily or weekly habit?
Yeah. I'm obviously growth marketing agency owner and operator, but I also like to dabble in side projects and interests. And one of those interests is actually YouTube channels. I've got 3. One is my personal one, which I haven't really been focusing on because ultimately I want channels that are faceless because I don't have to record and get on the camera. I'm not the best looking person in the world and I'm not naturally great at speaking into the camera and not forgetting my lines. And so there's the personal one, which I don't focus on. There's this Formula One channel that's Formula One oriented. And then there's this film analysis channel called Behind the Scenes that focuses on reviewing films. We were talking about Dune before the podcast started. And I think one of my pleasures in life is escaping into a work of fiction and watching movies. And I'll have ChatGPT and sometimes Gemini perform the research for whatever it is the video I'm working on is about. I'll have it put together an outline. I'll have it script out the actual narration. And then I'll copy that narration and I'll paste it into something called 11 Labs, which is an amazing text to speech and also speech to speech tool that, spits out a narration that is almost indistinguishable from a real human being. And when I say that, I don't mean it lightly because I've created, I think, 30 to 40 videos across these channels with 11 Labs narrations, and it's my voice. And I'll share these videos with my friends and I'll tell them, hey, that's not my voice. Actually, it's AI generated. And they'll just be like, what? Like, how, this sounds exactly like you. And the reason why it works like that is because they can take a 7-minute recording of your voice, ingest it, process it, and then have your voice as an option for a voiceover that you can paste in. So I'll have my script, I'll paste it in, I'll hit generate, and then Alvin's voice will be narrating that piece of work. It's incredible. And it's been really great at creating the voiceovers and narrations. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I've used 11 Labs. I think it's amazing. Just the technology. I actually recorded a full audiobook using 11 Labs, and it's not perfect.
Mhm.
There's certain words that may need to be redone.
Yeah.
After you go through that process, what are you using to clean it up? Do you have a video editor of preference? Do you hand it off to someone to say, hey,
Yeah.
what happens after?
Yeah. So great question. The tool is not to create a complete video, right? You still need to source the visuals, you need to edit the clips together. There's such an art, going back to art versus science, there's such an art to keeping your viewer retention up on YouTube, keeping those emotional bumps of interest elevated. And that involves things like dramatic pauses, music inflections, the way it narrates. And so, yeah, 11 Labs, all these tools for AI video editing, not quite there. They're not going to give you what you need for a legitimately good video. So I still have an editor that I pass these files off to. He helps me source all the visuals according to the script, and he'll edit things together. But in terms of cleaning up a potentially problematic or like a voiceover with some blips and errors in it, they used to have you input the whole script in one text field and then you'd hit generate. What 11 Labs has done now is, and this is an acute pain that I've been feeling for the past couple of weeks, and it's been driving me up the wall. They have this thing called projects where it's like a Word doc, and you've probably used it, but you basically paste your whole script in there and generate like line or paragraph by paragraph. And then because you've done it in that kind of modular way, you can go back and regenerate the sentences that have errors in them. So that's what I've been doing. Yeah.
Hmm, that's a good idea. Chunking it up into manageable chunks.
Yeah. I think, they must have gotten a ton of feedback about this because a lot of the people who use 11 Labs complain about, hey, they're charging me credits. So they're giving me unusable narrations with weird pronunciations. There's an example where I was making a video about the Society of the Snow, which is this movie on Netflix about these Argentinian guys who were stranded in the Andes Mountains and they had to resort to cannibalism to survive. And it was a true story. And it was like, it's just crazy. And one of the words in the script was loneliness, and 11 Labs had pronounced it lonelliness. And I was watching this with my friends and they were like, what the heck is that? And then, yeah, I just went in there and regenerated that one sentence and then exported it back out and gave it to the editor and everything was fine.
Yeah, you definitely have to watch it to catch it, and hopefully it doesn't go out with those strange words, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What's been so you've started some YouTube channels. What video has had the most success that maybe you didn't expect, or what have you learned? Because I also have a few different YouTube channels I'm starting, and I've set up some new channels, haven't done anything with them, but I got ideas. So I'm curious, as someone who's also uh, doing some dabbling on some different things, what have you learned?
Yeah. It's a couple of different things here and there. I think first of all, there's so many artful pieces of creating a good piece of content on YouTube that you have to just study. Things like how to frame a video, right? What is the big idea for this video? That big idea turns into the packaging. And the packaging is, what is the headline or the title that people see on their feed? What is the thumbnail? The bigger your idea, the bigger your packaging can be. And if you have a small argument or a small idea that people don't really care about, that video might be doomed to fail, even if it's perfect. Just because the total addressable market of people who are interested in it might be very small or very niche, right? So it's stuff like strategy and content planning and also the technical kind of beats of how to make a video. So you open with the big idea, you make sure the first couple of lines match the packaging. So like the title of the thumbnail. You don't want someone to click if the thumbnail is like top 5 places to visit in Oahu. And then the video is, oh, spam musubi is the best snack because like it has to match, obviously. Then how do you keep the interest once you've made that statement? You have to have you have to set context, right? So give people background. And then you have to ask open-ended questions after you've set the context so that they want to know the answers. They want to keep watching so they can get the payoff. And then you give them the payoff. If you give the payoff right in the beginning, what actually ends up happening is people will watch the video up until they've gotten everything they needed. This is the way YouTube works, right? Like you want to increase average watch time. And if you give them the payoff first, people will just drop off. So you save the best for last. There's a lot of that stuff. Outside of that, I think one of the most successful videos that I've had was actually the first one I ever made for my personal channel. This was back in 2021. And COVID had just started to phase out of its initial panic phase. And me and my wife went to Hawaii with some friends and I made a video about like top places to check out in Oahu. And that one got 150,000 views. But that has been the best video I've ever made. Unfortunately, I've not been able to get back to that 150K viewpoint. And I think the second best video was one that I made last month, heading into the Super Bowl. This was for the behind the scenes channel. There's the channel is themed around film analysis, right? And one of the documentaries that we watched over the past couple of weeks was Miss Americana, this documentary that dives into Taylor Swift's behind the scenes world. And obviously, this is like a big propaganda piece by Taylor Swift. It allows her to reclaim the narrative and tell her side of the story, maybe spin things to be positive. But that one got 40,000 views. And I think it's because you have to act like a news reporter and create content that is hot in that moment. Heading into the Super Bowl, everyone was talking about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. Travis Kelce is Taylor Swift's boyfriend currently. Who knows how long that'll be a thing, but that one was popping off and everything else I've made after that hasn't been popping off. So it's a little bit of like timing and being relevant. And I think this is an ongoing journey for me. And I don't know if AI is the panacea, bringing it back to the beginning of creating these faceless videos. I think I might have to go back in and dive into creating things manually to really start succeeding and then maybe replicating that success. But yeah, it's just that world is huge and it's very humbling because you spend hours working on a video and it gets 30 views. And then, yeah, you have to figure out how to get back up off the mat.
How much do you follow Mr. Beast in terms of his thinking or videos on his approach, his channels? What is your thoughts on the work that he's doing and what have you learned from studying him?
Yeah, actually, what I spoke about earlier with matching the packaging to the opening couple of lines, that's a Mr. Beast. Everyone does that, right? I think that's just the best practice. But I first heard about that from Mr. Beast. He was like, look, you have to make sure that people, when they start watching their first 3 seconds, it's exactly what they signed up for. So that was the one takeaway. But other than that, I don't think I watch too much of his stuff. I think that's one type of content where he's already reached escape velocity, right? He has critical mass, millions of subscribers. He's been doing it for 10 years. His thumbnails are super colorful and very engaging. It's not personally my cup of tea. I don't watch those videos. But yeah, he's his own little phenomenon because he makes money, gives that money away. It's like this self perpetuating money cycling machine. And I can't create that content. I can't buy a
Yeah.
Bugatti way to the
Right.
last who has his hand on it. So yeah, it's a little bit different. But I've been watching a lot of Film Boost and Think Media and Patty Galloway, which are I think some of the creators that work for Mr. Beast or have consulted and been in his sphere. And yeah, like everything around script writing and keeping those emotional beats of interest elevated, like it's from those guys. So yeah, if there's anyone in your audience out who's trying to be an aspiring YouTuber, I'd love to hear what their ideas are as well at some point. But those are good places to start for learning how to make good videos.
Yeah, I'm also curious if there's any aspiring YouTubers and what your channel is. Drop it below or wherever you see this video, and love to hear from you and your thoughts and who you look up to. I like Think Media. I found myself subscribed to them, and I think that they're doing good work. Enjoyed their podcast approach. I think the one podcast I caught there was with Mr. Beast talking about his tips, Mr. Beast
Yeah.
tips for success. But yeah, looking up to certain creators and people that you think are doing things well, there are the ones that have left the orbit. And then there's some that are just maybe been doing it just a little bit longer, and we can all learn from each other. I appreciate you sharing your insights. What are your channels that people can check out?
Yeah. It's weird. I don't know how to like it's when my friends ask that question and I tell them to search, it doesn't pop up in the results probably because I'm too small. But if people want to learn more about me, they
I
can
mean,
find.
I can't find you.
Yeah, exactly. If they want to learn more about me or connect, they can find me at linkedin.com/in/Alvin Ding. I don't know how many Alvin Dings there are out there, but I'm the one that has the worked at Airbnb kind of work history in my profile. I also write a Substack at alvinding.substack.com where people can subscribe and get my newsletter. I share tools, tactics, and insights from the growth marketing world. But for the specific YouTube channels, the Formula One is called Wheel to Wheel. I don't know how to get it to show up. The film analysis one is called Behind the Scenes. And then my personal one is just Alvin Ding. So yeah, if people want to look me up on YouTube, they can give that a shot.
We'll make sure that we leave some links to those so people can get their hands on those channels. And remember, subscribe.
For sure.
I've been seeing these. Sometimes it's short. I was
Yeah.
watching one just before we jumped on here, and it was just this little thing. And then at the end, the guy said subscribe, and I'm like, "Is that what I sound like?" It was just subscribe and then cut. Uh,
Yeah.
it just go
I
ahead.
find you gotta give people a reason to do things, right? Like you can't just be like, hey, subscribe because it helps my channel. A good way of reframing it would be like, if you want to see more content like this, then subscribe. Because then they'll be like, yeah, I do want to see more content like that. Okay, I'll subscribe. Instead of, oh yeah, I'll give you and subscribe because it helps you. People are self-interested. That's the marketer in me. Yeah.
I like Jimmy Kimmel used to do this thing where he'd go and subscribe, and you'll get 1,000 wishes. Or it'd be something humorous
Yeah.
that lightens, that takes the edge off that and subscribe, especially if the reason wasn't given beforehand. Either be truthful, give someone an incentive to like and subscribe, or maybe make a joke about it. Not for everyone, but I always enjoyed when he would do that kind of thing.
Yeah. For sure.
This has been a real pleasure. Thanks you so much for sharing, Alvin. I'm sure who's ever listening has gotten a ton of value from your insights and your story. And yeah, happy to do this again sometime. And you're welcome back anytime.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure. And I guess we'll just say if you like videos like this one, visit the openaitraining.com. You can check them out. And I've also got a brand new course for entrepreneurs learning to use the iPhone and ChatGPT at artofchatgpt.com. So check that out too. Thank you so much, everyone, and stay grateful. Cheers.